Hello everybody, it's Kara from Wild Book Garden, and today I am here with part 1 of my April wrap-up. I know this is very late. I'm not even gonna explain or apologize. You guys know that life just happens sometimes. So the first book I finished was Remember by Joy Harjo and illustrated by Michaela Goad. This is a picture book that I have been so excited about since I heard of its existence. Michaela Goad is one of my absolute favorite illustrators. I think her use of color and like just inexplicable. Like, I'm not good at describing it, but I absolutely love her illustration style and the kinds of stories that she illustrates. And then Joy Harjo is a US Poet Laureate, and I have really enjoyed some of the poetry that I've read from her, so this combination was fantastic. Joy Harjo is a member of the Misogyny Nation, and Michaela Goad is a member of the Tlingit Nation. And yeah, I just thought this was really beautiful. I do feel like the poetry and the art work together wonderfully. I give it 5 stars. Just gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. The next book I finished was The Case of the Bizarre Bouquets by Nancy Springer. This is the 3rd book in the Enola Holmes series, which is a series I've really been enjoying. It's a series of books that imagines if Sherlock and Mycroft Holmes had a little sister named Enola. I think she's like in her mid-teens, and it's kind of her adventures, kind of getting out in the world on her own and trying to evade capture from her brothers who have other ideas about what a young woman should be doing with her life. And each of the novels is a different mystery, and this one actually involves Dr. Watson going missing. And so Enola kind of stumbles across this in the course of her own investigations for something else, and so she wants to help, but she also doesn't want to get caught by her brother Sherlock. And I really enjoyed this. This was my favorite of the 3 that I had read so far. I was a little worried that the mystery solution was kind of going to do what the 2nd book did, which I didn't like, but it didn't. I do think there were still parts that could have been handled better, but overall I liked the mystery. I really like following Enola, and I really like that we are shown how clever and resourceful and adaptable she is rather than just being told that. Like there's a lot of times in the books when we get to see her disguise herself or improvise something, and I just really like seeing her plans come together. And I thought it was really cool in this one that her disguise that she kind of used was like a beautiful young woman of like aristocratic birth, like basically a society belle, because she's really smart about like not doing what like young runaway girls would kind of be expected to do. So like she doesn't dress up as a boy, she dresses up as an older woman or a more beautiful woman, and I just think that's a really cool element. With also some interesting commentary on beauty and on what beauty can get you. And I think I've said this before, but I really like the way that this series writes Sherlock's character, because he does have a heart. I think in a lot of modern adaptations he is like, they over exaggerate his logicalness to the point of like not really understanding like emotions or not ever having emotional responses, and that's actually really not the case. And I feel like we get to see that in these books. Like there are still things he does that are incredibly frustrating, but I think that he's really well written, and I think that you can really see the love and the care that he has for the people in his life. So yeah, I really enjoyed this. I gave The Case of the Bizarre Bouquets 4 stars. Next, I finished a nonfiction book that is Don't Overthink It, Make Easier Decisions, Stop Second Guessing, and Bring More Joy to Your Life by Anne Bogle. This is a nonfiction book, and I listened to it on audio. I'm pretty sure Anne Bogle narrates it herself, and if that's an option for you, I would definitely recommend the audio because her voice is just really beautiful and soothing, and like not soothing in the way that it's like monotone or anything. Like I really enjoyed her narration. And I guess you could kind of call this a self-help book. I know there's a lot of like negative things associated with that, but this is basically a nonfiction book about the like process or the habit of like overthinking, and kind of getting stuck in loops of overthinking and over planning and like worrying and that kind of thing, and like ways to kind of break out of that. Now, as a person with an anxiety disorder, I was a little wary of this one. Like I didn't think it would be super helpful, and I thought it might be kind of like surface level and honestly kind of condescending, like if you have anxiety or anything like that, and people, like I thought it'd be the equivalent of someone being like, just stop worrying so much. But this was actually like more helpful than I expected. And Bogle is very upfront about like, she's not like a psychologist, and she's not like diagnosing people, and she's not like, saying that all of this is new information or that all of these things will change your life or anything like that. Like she's really just kind of telling her experiences, backing it up with science, and saying like, these are some things that work for me, these are why they work, these are some things to think about, and that kind of thing. And one thing I thought was really interesting is that some of the like examples or ideas that really stuck with me are just the things that she kind of mentioned in passing. Like at one point she's talking about how, you know, even though like being organized can turn into like a fixation or an obsession, it is good to kind of have a space that you are able to work well in. And so she talks about sometimes when her desk gets too cluttered and everything, or her office, she knows that if she can work on that and fix that, then the other things that she's worried about will be easier to handle and to process. And so one thing she mentions is like this literary sci-fi book that she read ages ago. I don't think she even mentioned the title. And just like picking up this little tidbit from that book, which is like this tip that if you're cleaning or organizing, to have like one kind of clear workspace that you have, like a bed or like a table or something, and then to tackle the room from left to right, because that gives you a concrete starting place so you don't have to worry about what would be the best place to start, and also you get to see progress pretty immediately. And that's just something like I've already been doing that, and I am kind of embarrassed and shocked at what a difference that makes. So just things like that, and then also some of the examples she uses I thought were really helpful and really relatable. Like I actually, like I said, got a lot more out of this than I thought. I don't think it is necessarily meant for people like me who actually have, you know, anxiety or any kind of similar things going on with their brain chemistry. And that was actually one of my only negatives for this book, is that although she does acknowledge that anxiety is a thing, like anxiety disorders exist, like when she's citing certain statistics or she's like using sources or quotes or something, like she will use some that reference anxiety. So she clearly is like aware and accepting of that fact, which I obviously, you know, appreciate. I think that's really important. But in the actual text of her book itself, I would have liked to see anxiety just be more of a thing that she talks about. Like obviously I'm not expecting her to you know, diagnose people or to write about anxiety in like a medical way or anything, but I would have really liked to see even just like a disclaimer about how maybe she does not have an anxiety disorder, and so kind of take this advice with a grain of salt, like that sort of thing. I just would have liked to see maybe more mentions of it, and you know, if she's talking about certain techniques, she could mention this variation can be helpful if you have anxiety or, you know, anything like that. I just would have liked to see that acknowledged more throughout the book. So that was kind of the only thing for this. But overall, I liked it. I gave Don't Overthink It 4 stars. Again, with the caveat that I think the helpfulness will vary depending on what you are going to this book for. Next, I read 3 absolutely gorgeous picture books by Henna Khan, which are all illustrated by Merdokht Amini. And I'm just going to talk about all of these and review all of them together because they were all incredible and I have the same thoughts. Golden Domes and Silver Lanterns, a Muslim book of colors. One Sun and Countless Stars, a Muslim book of numbers. And Crescent Moons and Pointed Minarets, a Muslim book of shapes. Yeah, these are just absolutely gorgeous picture books. Like the color and the artwork is stunning, and I thought this is such a wonderful way to talk about these different concepts. I love the way that Henna Khan connected these concepts to Islam and to like historical Muslim scientists and scholars and artists. Like I just think that this is a really, really wonderful series of picture books. I would definitely recommend these for honestly anybody, like if you have kids in your life, but also like if you're an adult looking to get into picture books. I just really loved these, and I also really loved that we got to see different Muslim communities and practices from different regions like around the world. So I thought these were really beautiful and I gave all of them 5 stars. Next, I finished this tiny little book, more like a booklet I guess, called The Proper Interpretation of Flowers, a Handbook of Necessary Knowledge for Ladies and Their Suitors by C.J. Brightly. This is kind of it's meant to kind of accompany a series of books that I think the first one is it like The Shield and the Thorn, or Shield and the Rose? Rose and the Thorn, something like that. A series that I have been really excited to start, and I did some kind of like Kickstarter, and this was one of the add-ons you could get, and this is sort of like the language of flowers, like that kind of thing, which is like the practice of, you know, using flowers as symbolism to like declare your feelings about someone or to send messages and that kind of thing. And I guess this is kind of a funny book to rate, but I gave it 4 stars. I found it really interesting. I thought the layout was good. Yeah, I just like it did what it wanted to do, I think, and I'm definitely looking forward to reading the full-length novels. This is sort of like a nonfiction accompaniment, and also one of my main takeaways is that with very few exceptions, you should only give somebody yellow flowers if you hate them, because it's really funny. It's like reading the different interpretations of flowers and how some of them have multiple meanings and how like the color of a flower also affects its meaning and all of that. And I swear it feels like at least 80% of the time, yellow flowers are bad. Like, only give them to someone if you don't like them, which I thought was funny. But yeah, this was good. Next, I finished Gate Sinister by Tansy Rayner Roberts. This is the first book in the Sparks and Filters series. I've talked about Tansy Rayner Roberts before, and I think this book officially puts her on my favorite author list, because I loved this. This is my favorite thing from her so far. This is a Gaslamp fantasy series that I've also seen described, I think she calls it like a fairy Victoriana or something, because we are following the last fairy in Britannia who is disguised as a governess, and she infiltrates the household of the Gloucester family to fulfill a vital mission on behalf of her exiled people. It's approaching, I think it's like midsummer, maybe, where like she will be able to like open a door into fairy, and this is something that she is trying to do to help her people, and she is one of our main characters, and then the other one is one of a pair of famous magical engineers, and the two of their stories end up getting tangled together. And Flavia, our main female character, she also is realizing that things are getting more complicated with her mission. So I really loved this. As I said, I loved both of our main characters. Flavia is just so smart and practical and good. My one real critique of this book is actually related to Flavia and how much I love her, which is that like there are certain things that we find out in the book that I don't think really track with what we know about Flavia and like her characterization throughout most of the story, but I love her so much that like it didn't really bother me that much. I just wanted to mention it. But Flavia was wonderful, and then I also really loved our male main character, whose name is Rinaldo. I just thought he was fantastic, and I also appreciate Tansy Rayner Roberts including characters from different backgrounds, because, you know, people of color have been around forever, so I just really like that as well. I love the world, and I love the blend of historical and fantasy. I thought it was also very fun. I was reading this for All the World's a Page, and I did not realize that the Forest of Arden was such a big point in this book, which is a setting from Shakespeare, so I thought that was very fun as well. I also love that this book explicitly critiques love potions and how completely messed up that concept is. I think I've mentioned this with a couple other books, but that is something that I have really strong feelings about, and I always appreciate when fantasy stories actually like discuss that rather than just like throwing in a mention of a love potion like it's nothing. And I also just thought the characterization and the character relationships in general were done so beautifully. I also really liked Flavia's charges, like the children that she is like looking after. I feel like they were really well developed and really engaging characters in their own right. They felt like, you know, fully developed people rather than just kind of plot conveniences like kids in books can sometimes feel like, specifically kids in books where the main characters are adults, you know? But yeah, I thought this was great. I really feel like Tansy Rayner Roberts is like a master of the novella format, because I think she packs in so much like character growth and like world building and like fun details and humor and relationships in a way that to me doesn't feel like overstuffed. Like I don't feel like she was trying to do too much in this book. Like there is a lot of interesting pieces of the concept, you know, like the fairy element and the historical element. There's kind of a heist, like all of that, like the mechanical or magical like inventions and things like that, but to me it didn't feel like there was too much going on. So I loved this. I gave Gate Sinister 5 stars. I just realized that I forgot to get one of the books, so I will just put a picture up here. But next I finished The Secret History of Home Economics. I can't remember the subtitle or the author because again I'm not holding the book, but I will put that information in captions. And this is a nonfiction book about just what it says, the origins of the study, which is home economics, and like that field, and how it's kind of like how it began and like its early days, kind of like a historical timeline approach to it, which I did not expect going in, but I really liked that format for this book. I feel very strongly about this topic, so I really just appreciated the central like point of this nonfiction book, which is looking at these like fields of study and these kinds of work and like inventions that are traditionally denigrated because they are associated with women, and I just really love the way that this book is, by its very existence, it is like giving those the weight and the respect that they deserve. So I loved that. Like I said, really enjoyed the layout. I thought the writing style was engaging and interesting. I really loved the way that the author used the like examples that she chose or the specific historical figures that she chose. I think she did a fantastic job of like writing them in ways that she clearly was using like sources for them, you know, like she wasn't kind of like just imagining what they would be like as a person, but she still managed to convey like things about their personality, and like you really felt like they came to life the way that she was describing them. I also love how inclusive this book is. I think I mentioned that in my TBR, my currently reading video, because like all fields, there have been women from all backgrounds working in them all along, and I really liked seeing them get some of that again, respect and attention that they deserve. Like she also talks about like poorer women and like the kind of socioeconomic dimension of like women being involved in these fields. I thought that along with the kind of history of this field, she also did a great job of kind of showing the history of kind of the shifts in views or perspectives or stereotypes around home economics, both like within and without. Like this book just covers way too much to try and, you know, mention all of it in a review, so I'm not going to try and cover all of the topics, but if you're at all interested in this concept, in this topic, I would definitely recommend it. I do think there were some parts where the kind of the detail she was giving on like the specific kind of groups and like political infighting almost was maybe a little too specific or detailed. Like it was hard kind of keeping track of like who was who in some of these like fights within different organizations, and like there were sections that it was a little harder to follow or to remember things than others, but in general I thought this was really, really well done. And I also just absolutely love the fact that even though a lot of this book is focused on kind of the like large view of what home economics accomplished and like why it's important, why it's still important, like I really love that this book is also so focused on like smaller examples, or like there's this one section where she's talking about like how a lot of the women, like home economists, were trying to justify how important their field was by talking about all of the big things it does and all of the scientific breakthroughs, and like those are all important. But I really love that the author also talks about how one of the things that home economics did and does is make ordinary women's lives easier, and gives them more time to feel fulfilled and to not have to spend like literally all of their waking hours on housework, and how like that in itself is a revolution, you know? Like I really love that idea that you don't necessarily have to make these big flashy like breakthroughs or discoveries, which is not saying that those aren't important, because they are, but like some of the women that she talks about, you know, there was one who I absolutely loved the way she was characterized and talked about, and she was she did this sort of like electric circus almost, where she would like go around to different like rural areas and demonstrate what electricity can do. It was almost like a carnival sort of thing, and how it could like change these women's lives so drastically and so much. And I love that this book also talks about that. So I give The Secret History of Home Economics 4.5 stars and would definitely recommend it. And then finally, I'm ending this video with another nonfiction pick, and that is Pandora's Jar, Women in the Greek Myths by Natalie Haynes. Natalie Haynes is also really well known for her like ancient Greek historical fiction, which I haven't read. This is like my first book by her, and this is her nonfiction book, and we're ending on such a high note, you guys, because I loved this so much. I think this is probably one of my favorite books I've read this year. This is just like exactly what I love in nonfiction. So this is a collection of essays that are about different women from Greek mythology, and looking at them through a feminist lens, and like really like breaking down and examining like what their stories tell us, how women are portrayed in these stories, how these stories are viewed now. I love this so much. Like mythology, historical nonfiction, feminism, just so many things that I love are just all wrapped up in this book. So very glad that I actually did love it as much as I was hoping to. First off, I love Natalie Haynes' writing style. She has this really dry, witty humor that I love so much. I mentioned Emma Southen, and I think if her style is a little too much for you, you might get on better with Natalie Haynes. I personally love both of their writing styles, but I think that Natalie Haynes might be more like generally enjoyable to people. I don't know. But just like, yeah, the dry humor I absolutely loved. And I also, as I've said many times with different writers, I appreciate that even though her writing style is so funny, like the way that she will like tell these stories or make these references, that's all really funny, but she doesn't try and joke about the things that are like heartbreaking about these stories or like horribly misogynistic. Like she doesn't joke when it would be inappropriate, which is something I really appreciate. I also love the selection of women she chose here, several of whom are like either my personal favorites or not even necessarily favorites, but like ones that I just find so interesting, and like I'm like very defensive of some of these women. Like Clytemnestra, for example. I just think she gets such a bad rap, and I think it is so unfair. So I just really loved the way that she chose her subjects, and also I just really resonated with a lot of the like analysis that she did and the ideas that she used here. They're things that I agree with very strongly or that I found very convincing, and I also think she did a great job of using these ancient stories and talking about them in ways that make it very clear why our interpretations of these stories still matter today. Yeah, I thought this was absolutely incredible. I'm gonna read everything Natalie Haynes writes ever. I know she has another kind of similar nonfiction coming out later this year that is about, I think specifically goddesses and like different like female mythological figures, and kind of doing a similar thing. So I love this. Everyone who told me I would is absolutely correct. I gave Pandora's Jar 5 stars. Okay, everybody, so that was the first group of books I read in April. Please comment down below and let me know if you have read any of these or if you're planning to. And yeah, let me know, what should I ask? Let me know like a book that you read recently that sounded like exactly your thing and it totally lived up to expectations. Because for me that was Pandora's Jar. Like I said, just mythology plus historical nonfiction plus feminism, and also like the writing style on top of that. Like all of those things are things that sounded like it would be a perfect book for me, and it absolutely was. So thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you soon with another video, and I hope you love the next book you read. Bye!